What is up, you amazing people? It's Nima here, and today I've got some bad news. Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like America is not the only country that is going to be getting their pre-orders delayed, as Canada has announced that their Switch 2 pre-orders are also delayed. I think a number of that is because of people like myself and others who've been trying to go to Canadian websites and pre-order a Switch 2. Also, unfortunately, it looks like a tariff deal fell through between Vietnam and America. We'll get more into that. But first, please hit that like and subscribe button, help this channel grow. It means the world to me and it costs you absolutely nothing. So let's go back to this pre-order delay. So I've noticed it because, again, like I said, I've been on Canadian sites, Mexican sites. I'm trying to get the pre-order in wherever I can. It was announced pretty much at 0 hour here that the Canadian pre-orders for the Switch 2 are also being delayed. And I do believe on this one, the Canadians can blame this on Americans, because I do believe it's like a logistics issue. There's just so much response and so many people waiting for that pre-order to drop in Canada that there's just not a practical way that they could handle that influx of business on their sites and everything. They're afraid of a crash. I do think that's part of it. I also do think that there's going to be some other logistics issues when it comes to shipping, how they're going to get that, how is it going to be tariff free, if you will. Just that Canada is so close to Mexico. I don't know anything about shipping and receiving internationally. I don't know where the ports are, how they're set up. This also just being a good example of Americans buying outside of America to try to avoid a tariff. I don't know how any of that's going to work out, to be honest. And I think, the other thing that we have to acknowledge is that Nintendo, it says launch date is remained unchanged. I was multiple managers at different retail stores, some relatively high up, and I can tell you this, with pre-orders and stuff like that, you need at least a month. This is all insane, and they're going to be pushing it right to the wire. Part of me is like wondering, are we just not going to get it at launch? Like, will it launch worldwide but not in America, in North America? At the moment, I really don't think that's the case. In fact, I think would be more likely than a North American release would just be no pre-orders and the thing just drops. And that would leave the public kind of scrambling from one retailer to another, trying to find the Switch 2. I know that there's a number of people who said, I'm not going to get the Switch 2, it's too expensive, this is just not the time, I have to wait for a price drop. All that said, but this is the Switch 2, and I fully believe that the thing is going to sell very, very well, at least for the first month or so. I'm sort of reminded of like the PS5 Pro, where a number of people said, oh, it's just too expensive, I can't do that. And then the thing proceeded to sell, and a number of people came out, oh, I ended up buying it, put it on credit or what have you, made it work. In fact, I was shocked because even at my local game store, and I don't have a chain, it's just a local mom and pop store, they have like 2 used PS5 Pros there. Some of the individuals that I still talk to that worked at Walmart, they're telling me too, like, yeah, the PS5 Pro sells more than you would think. With that being said, I just assume the Switch 2 is going to sell even better. And again, even though there's a number of people saying they're not going to get it, that's what they say. Let's see what happens when it actually drops. Although without pre-orders, without confirmation, are these companies going to take a risk and have the Switch 2 in their warehouses or in their back rooms? I don't know. Probably, because it's a Switch 2, but also the economy here in America is not good. So to be taking a risk like that I could see some companies doing it. But I could also see where there's a number of other companies that just decide to hold off, because maybe the Switch 2 did price itself out of the market. Also, we don't even know the tariffs yet. If the tariffs do drop at 46%, then there's probably going to be a number of people who say, okay, I was with this, but I can't do that. And that actually takes us to our next story, which is the tariff trade deal between Vietnam and America, where Vietnam had proposed, let's just do 0% tariffs across the board. 0 for America, 0 for Vietnam, quote-unquote free trade, allowing for products to flow between the two nations without there being a penalty. But the Trump administration did reject this proposal, and I don't know why. I think one of the big reasons is because, honestly, the headline. It's not going to look good because right now, Vietnam has a 5% tariff on America, and America has a 46% tariff on Vietnam. So it would look like Vietnam is not giving very much up, and America is giving 41%, and I could see how some could turn that into a loss of a trade war or something. And to me, I think that's ridiculous, but honestly, I don't know what other reason it could be. The fact is I do believe that there is part of the Trump administration who wants to figure out how to even out the trade deficit. But I don't think that that's possible with Vietnam, not only because they don't have the buying power that America does, they don't have the population that America does, and they don't have the wealth that America does. So you're just up against the board here. On top of that, there are certain things that Vietnam happens to produce that we don't want to make over here. Yeah, no, we'll take the switches, we'll take some of the electronics and stuff like that, but what we don't want to make over here? Clothing, textiles, all of that. It's a real nasty thing to produce in your country. We don't want to. The Trump administration itself has said that they don't want to. So why are we keeping these tariffs on Vietnam? I don't know. And we're not going to be able to fix that deficit at all. So I don't know. I'm just as curious as anyone else. And I know so many of you guys come to me for financial advice. You're like, oh, Nima, you're NBA or whatever that is. You know about rolling over 401ks and IRAs and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, on this one, I actually don't know, and yes, I am an idiot when it comes to any of this stuff. It's just me guessing. Now, the one thing I will say is I am out on the switch to if it is at 46% higher. If we get that 46% tariff, I just can't do it. It's like way too expensive. We're looking like $700+. Now, there has been some rumors and leaks going on that we're looking at a $50 raise. And I hate to say this, and I hate being in this position, but if it's only $550 or $500, I think that would be a good thing. Like, honestly, I think that would be a net positive. As I've said before, the hardware itself is actually really good. In fact, we're sort of getting a deal on it. If you tried to get a handheld PC, or if you tried to create this thing yourself, you're gonna spend over, I would say, $600 or so. I don't know, it's hard to say because it has a custom NVIDIA chip. Like, you can't really put a price on that. But if you were to try to price it, you are getting at least your money's worth at $450 and $500, if not a little bit of a bang for your buck. So if it goes up by $50, that's actually not that bad. And I know that it sounds awful. I can't believe I'm saying that. Like, hey, this new console might only go up $50, and we should rejoice if that's all it goes up. And I don't know. I think I tend to start to agree with JP from Good Talk HQ, as he was talking about on his channel. He thinks like the Switch 2 might be outpricing itself. And honestly, as this goes on, I'm starting to feel that same way too. I hope not, because I really do think that this machine itself is incredibly cool, super powerful, and it's going to have a lot of transformation regarding handhelds in the upcoming future. But I don't know. I think Nintendo may have tried to release it at just the wrong time, at least in America. And yes, inflation has been on the rise for years. You can't just put that on the recent administration or any of that stuff. But it did seem like people had a little bit more credit a couple years ago, and now they've kind of exhausted that, and we're just sort of up against it. And yet we're also dealing with a trade war and all of this stuff. So I don't know. I hope that that's not the case. I know personally I'm not the only one who wants to Switch 2, and I'm looking at like what I can trade to get it. Like, it's not going to be something I can just afford out of my pocket. And I know there's a number of people who are in that same situation I am. But anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. By the way, I just want to throw one last thing out. I want to throw a shout out to my dad. I'm really proud of him. He was diagnosed with congestive heart failure about 2 weeks ago, and he's really made a huge comeback. They got about 28 pounds of fluid out of him, and he's back up on his feet. He's trying to work, exercise, get strong again. And he has this fire inside of him that I haven't seen in a very long time. I know he checks out some of these videos, so I hope he checks out this one, because your son's really proud of you, and I'm glad you're doing everything you can to stay here with your grandchildren and your family. But anyway, guys, again, let me know what your thoughts are down below on all these stories and everything else. I really do appreciate you guys. I love each and every one of you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.